Personal statement, Mr. Speaker. Under Standing Order number 58, to make my personal statement following my nomination by His Excellency President William Ruto to serve as a Cabinet Secretary in the Ministry of Roads, Transport and Public Works. Mr. Speaker, this morning, our sister house, the National Assembly, approved our names, and the names of the Cabinet Secretary's nominees approved includes my name, as it is now in public domain that I was nominated by the President to serve in that docket. And following that nomination, Mr. Speaker, it is now my departure from this august house is imminent. I am, Mr. Speaker, standing here with mixed feelings because Senate has been home for over 10 years. In the year 2013, I was elected by the people of Elgeyo-Marakwet County on the 4th of March 2013 to serve as the senator for Elgeyo-Marakwet County. That time, Mr. Speaker, I was barely 33 years. Mr. Speaker, in the contest that led to my election, I competed with seasoned politicians, including the late Nicholas Biwott, whom, Mr. Speaker, was my worthy competitor, and the people, notwithstanding my financial status, my unknown name, my unknown background, the people of Elgeyo-Marakwet County, having listened to my manifesto, agreed to elect me to come and serve them in this house. Mr. Speaker, I am eternally grateful that despite that background, my people decided that they were going to vote for me. And Mr. Speaker, when I came here, my colleagues whom we served together, many of whom were very seasoned politicians, worked with me, walked with me, mentored me, respected me, Mr. Speaker, and from the onset, I was entrusted with responsibility in this chamber. I became the first chair of the Devolved Government and Intergovernmental Relations Committee. I became, Mr. Speaker, a member of the Public Accounts Committee, pioneer member of the Public Accounts Committee, and that County Public Accounts Committee, for my colleagues whom we were together here, you remember the challenges we went through, summoning governors to come to this house and shaping, Mr. Speaker, the relationship of this house in some matters of accountability with counties. I became, Mr. Speaker, a member of the Speaker's panel. From day one, I had the responsibility of chairing sessions of this house on behalf of the Speaker and the Deputy Speaker when they were not in session. And, Mr. Speaker, I was also given the honor of being, Mr. Speaker, a member of Pan-African Parliament. And through that, Mr. Speaker, I served this country and this Senate with a lot of diligence, commitment, passion. And what I remember, Mr. Speaker, is that it didn't take 6 months. And as the chair of the Devolution Committee, I had to guide the House when we decided that we had to go to Supreme Court for an advisory opinion at a time when the mandate of this House, Mr. Speaker, was being challenged by the National Assembly. And this House, Mr. Speaker, must be remembered that in the first Senate, the first year of the Senate, we did not get the opportunity to, Mr. Speaker, discuss county allocation of revenue bill and, Mr. Speaker, division of revenue bill, because at that point in time, the National Assembly thought we should not have that mandate. And because of our concerted effort as a team and the trust that the leadership of the House at that time, Senate, had, we managed, Mr. Speaker, to ensure that we get an advisory opinion from the Supreme Court that protected the authority of this House and the jurisdiction of this House, Mr. Speaker, which sadly has continued to suffer in the hands of, Mr. Speaker, our sister house in the National Assembly. It didn't take 3 years, Mr. Speaker. In 2016, one of my colleagues, Senator Charles Keteru, who was the Deputy Majority Leader, was nominated in the same way I have been nominated to serve in the cabinet. And the opportunity that came, my party, Mr. Speaker, nominated me and approved me to be the Deputy Majority Leader. Again, Mr. Speaker, at a young age of, Mr. Speaker, barely 36 years, I became the Deputy Majority Leader of this House. And Mr. Speaker, from then onwards, Mr. Speaker, I also relinquished other responsibilities. But it must be remembered also, Mr. Speaker, that at the time when we had a challenge about the mandate of this House, I became a chair of a select committee deputized by Senator Mutula Kilonzo Jr. then to protect again and find ways of using the Constitution to protect the mandate of this House. Mr. Speaker, I have been lucky to be part of many initiatives in this House, including being a member of a joint committee, Mr. Speaker, of both houses that looked into electoral reform that was formed, Mr. Speaker, in 2016, and that led to the massive electoral reforms that then chaired by Senator Kiraitu Murungi and Senator Orengo. Mr. Speaker, I leave this House having sponsored a number of bills and having pushed many bills as Majority Leader, Mr. Speaker, because I was re-elected in 2017, given the responsibility of being the Majority Leader. And for the 2.5 years I served as a Majority Leader, I pushed so many bills and fought again, continuously fought for the authority and the protection of the mandate and jurisdiction of this House on matters bills, especially on the operationalization of Article 110 of the Constitution, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, that responsibility required at times to disagree with the executive of the very party, Mr. Speaker, that nominated me. I believe some of the reasons why I was removed as Majority Leader, apart from other external political reasons, is, Mr. Speaker, I brought to this chamber a 20-page statement challenging, Mr. Speaker, the Nairobi Metropolitan Services as an entity, Mr. Speaker, taking over responsibilities of Nairobi County. The President then might have been angry with me as the Majority Leader, but I remember, Mr. Speaker, that I swore that I will protect and defend the Constitution. I'm glad, Mr. Speaker, that as time goes, time has proven, Mr. Speaker, that I was right on the issue of Nairobi Metropolitan Services, considering the things and the misdeeds that happened in Nairobi City. Mr. Speaker, there were so many instances here that we had to do things that sometimes we disagree with the executive, privately or publicly. And I believe that that example that we set will assist the leadership of this House, particularly my friend Senator Aaron Cheruyot, as he pursues, Mr. Speaker, as he leads this House, particularly being the political leader of the majority side, to ensure that even though he is a friend of the President, and even though he comes from the majority party, that he may not lose sight of his responsibility to defend and protect the Constitution and protect the mandate, Mr. Speaker, of the Senate of the Republic of Kenya. Mr. Speaker, I know that time has come, like the Bible says in Ecclesiastes chapter 3, that, Mr. Speaker, there is a time for everything. And, Mr. Speaker, time has come. The 10 years that the people of Elgeyo Marakwet entrusted me to serve in this House, Mr. Speaker, has come to an end. Anytime this afternoon, I will hand in my resignation letter to you, Mr. Speaker. That even as I do so, Mr. Speaker, I want to say that I'm very proud of my tenure in this House for 10 years. It is not for me to tell Kenyans whether I left a legacy or not. It's for historians to write about my responsibility in this House. There's a lot we would have achieved, Mr. Speaker, had we sorted the problem of relationship between this House and the National Assembly. There's a lot, Mr. Speaker, our country would have benefited if there was a proper implementation of Article 110 of the Constitution insofar as bills concerning county. There is a lot that this country lost, Mr. Speaker, by denying the opportunity, Senate the opportunity to contribute to matters of bills. That is one area, Mr. Speaker, even as I exit from this door, Mr. Speaker, to the executive, that is one area I will continue being an ambassador of the Senate. That is one area, Mr. Speaker, I will work with the leadership of this House to ensure that the executive respects the mandate of the Senate. And luckily, we have had many discussions with the current president about protection of the mandate of the Senate. And I believe that we shall be able to achieve this through consultation, cooperation, and more so, Mr. Speaker, through very transformative leadership that will be offered by this House. Mr. Speaker, I leave this house knowing that I leave very great men and women whom, Mr. Speaker, were recently elected. And unfortunately, I used to joke, especially to the majority side, particularly our SG knows that it was, I was telling her it would have been my greatest pleasure to be here to mentor her, but also to monolize her a little bit. Mr. Speaker, I have not had that chance. She has just told me, you are leaving before you did anything to monolize us. But, Mr. Speaker, the men and women elected on both sides of the House are people who have served this country in very senior capacities, Mr. Speaker, people who have relevant experiences, Mr. Speaker, in different fields and in different professions, Mr. Speaker. I believe that if they take their responsibility seriously, and I want to tell honorable members here, you don't know what's going on inside me. There are things I'm very proud I did, but there are things I regret that I didn't take time to do. Maybe I would have done more bills. Maybe I would have come with more statements. This is a forum, Mr. Speaker, we must be honest to one another, that we are so privileged to be among the only 67 men and women entrusted by the people of Kenya to run the affairs of the Senate. And how many 50 million Kenyans would wish one day they would enter that door? We must never take it for granted, Mr. Speaker. We must make sure that our names are inscribed in the annals of history. We must make sure, Mr. Speaker, that Hansard one day will say there were men and women who came through this door, Mr. Speaker, and as they left legacy in this house. And I think that is the message I want to leave to you, my colleagues. I am proud that inside these chambers, there are colleagues we schooled together. Senator Sigei, who is my legal partner, Mr. Speaker, was a class behind me. Mr. Speaker, the Secretary General of ODM, Senator Sifuna, who was also a classmate of Sigei. So that's the people we schooled together, friends of our generation. Mr. Speaker, I have 2 students in this house